Hi, poker players. Lou Krieger here. Because these examples that we're using are all micro stakes games, you're going to find some shoddy play occasionally and poor play from players to whom the stakes probably don't matter much, or players who are very new to the game and just learning and beginners and don't have all their chops down pat. Good news for our hero. He's flopped a set of fives. Sets are powerful, powerful hands in poker, because your opponent will usually not suspect you of having a set until it's cost him some money. It's always important to remember that regardless of how big a hand you flop, remember that poker is a game of money played with cards. It's not a game of cards played with money. And the money is the important thing. And a check and then a check raise on the turn would have turned a much better profit than he saw by simply raising and having his opponent fold. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, hey, our hero would have paired his 10 and probably had the best hand at this point, that's not the way to think about poker or to analyze whether you made the best decision or not. You don't know what's going to fall, and if you did, you'd be the best poker player and the richest poker player on the planet. Now, Lucas was the first one to come out with a bet on that hand, and often in situations like that where it's been checked around and nobody seems to have much of anything, that's called an orphaned pot. It's a pot sitting there that nobody wants. And very frequently, the first player in with a bet is going to win it. It's like a street fight. The guy that throws the first punch is generally going to win. And Lucas came out with the first punch in the way of a bet, and both his opponents folded their hands. Again, you find this kind of weak, unthinking play in a lot of low-limit, micro-limit games. So word to the wise, you'll have opponents that are willing to give you money, and just be sure and take it from them. And he raises. Finally, he pulls the trigger, announcing to the blinds, hey, I have the best hand. You guys have random hands. Surrender your blinds. Let me win the $3 that's out there for me to take home, and I'll be a happy camper. So if I were in player 4's position, I would say, okay, I gambled $2 on a pair of trays. It's obvious I am not in first place, and I'm going to throw that puppy away. And he does. When you think about poker, it's important to realize that money that you save spends just as well as money that you earn. So every time you save a bet by getting out of the way of somebody with a better hand, it's just as good as winning that amount of money. Three, four, five, six. Our hero is sitting there with a hand full of nothing. So he's making a continuation bet here, telling Maurice, I had a big hand before the flop. I have an even bigger hand now. Here's an 8-cent bet into a 12-cent pot. Get out of my pot, give me the money, and let's end this right here. Now our hero gets aggressive. He's raising. He's saying, Damien, I think I've got you beaten, so I'm going to make it 40 cents to go here. Up to you, Damien. What are you going to do? So Damien re-raises, saying, I've got the best hand. I can beat you 7 days a week. Your turn, hero. We're going to run on to the next hand to see if it's any better. There's a 5 deuce. Suited, but terrible. Folds, and we'll go on to the next hand. He's got 5 deuce again. He's rewarded. And he folds 10-4. If you're sitting there and you're dealt hands like this that are absolutely terrible, 10-4 and 5-deuce and 5-deuce again, don't sit there and curse the fates. You should be happy you're dealt these hands, because these hands are no-brainers. They're very easy to play. You won't make a decision that gets you into trouble. If you're sitting there with a 5-deuce, your play is painfully obvious and abundantly clear. Just take that puppy and throw it away and wait for a good hand. It's easy. Now, if you've been watching this series as we've been going forward, you'll notice that in the past you saw a lot of really paltry, mealy-mouthed, skimpy, chickenish bets of 2 cents and 4 cents. And here you have a decent bet by Rio. 14 cents into a 19-cent pot is a statement that he has a hand. He has a decent hand. And our hero's 34-cent raise is, of course, a nice raise, but our hero is doing that with the certainty that he cannot be beaten right now. He can only be tied, so he's safe in raising any amount of money. He didn't go all in because he didn't want to drive Rio away. Now Rio's gone all in, and it's 94 cents. Our hero is, of course, going to call. And Rio has 3 nines, so Rio has 10 outs to make a full house or better. There's a 4. It doesn't help Rio. Our hero is going to take a big pot. He wins $2.07. And if you've been following this entire series, you'll notice that our hero has played very, very few hands relative to many of the other players at the table, and yet he's managed to build up his stack size. It's a lesson that in No Limit Hold'em, you don't have to play a lot of hands. You just have to play the big ones when you have the best of it, and that's the key to this game. For Pokerology, I'm Lou Krieger.